Welcome into the voice of college football on Notre Dame. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Brendan McAlinden. We have not been here for a minute, and it seems like the entire sport of college football has changed. And it is a different landscape than it was 3 weeks ago with the House settlement, the conference, or the college football playoff seeding changes, and official visit season is well underway. We're going to hit all of those today, as well as some different thoughts about this Notre Dame team that keeps us up at night. But first, how you been? It's been too long.
I've been doing fantastic. I am now in the full swing of youth baseball season.
Yes.
It is youth baseball is a full-time job as a parent. I'm coaching my son's rec league team, and then his travel team has already played 3 tournaments to this point. They just played a tournament in Saline over the weekend. It's a full-time job being a youth baseball parent. It's wild. It is absolutely wild now.
Anybody thrown out of a game yet?
No, but my wife told me that on one of the other fields at the tournament we were just at, because I man the DJ for all the kids walk-up music, and she said that there was a benches clearing brawl, or I guess the benches cleared for like a U11 baseball team, and they had to like toss the coaches for it. And it's just like people are getting buck wild out there with their youth baseball, and they're you wouldn't think to see some brawls, but I mean, here we are.
U11 benches clearing, a little standoff. I imagine not a full-on brawl. It would have made it onto like an ESPN Instagram post or something like that. That's pretty legendary stuff. Those kids will remember that forever.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if it's like a full-on. I don't think anybody's throwing punches, but they all cleared out, and some coaches got given the heave-ho. I didn't get the full rundown. The other ridiculous part is we played this team on Saturday in our second game, and man, I'm doing the math. I'm watching, I'm right behind the plate, and so I have a clear view of their dugout. I'm looking at the bats that the kids all have lined up, and Sam's playing U8 baseball, so he's 8 years old. And I'm looking at the bats that these kids have on their chain link fence there, and according to my math, there was $5,600 in bats.
Wow. Different types of designs. What are they looking like now?
Well, I mean, there's obviously there was 4 hype fires. There were 3 icons, 2 bone sabers, a couple of Cat X2s. We were doing the math there on this team's lineup, and my cousin, her son was playing across the way. They play for Ann Arbor, and she was saying that the team that they were playing, the whole team, all 12 kids had the dub, which is the $500. The hype fire is like $400. Mm-hmm. But the dub is the new Easton big bat, and they all had $500 bats, all 12 of them. Man,
wow,
12 kids.
Hopefully that team was good.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I think it was Northville. They were all rocking dubs, and it's just like, boy, oh boy, I don't know. $500 for an 8U bat they're going to outgrow in a year. That's something.
That's a tough investment. I've been the same way. Now I don't have kids, but buying like the little shoes, I'm sure is a nice investment. But like it's cool to have like a nice little pair of shoes that they can rock. You know what I'm talking about? Like when they're just barely old enough to like put.
The soles are still made of like and they got like a pair of Air Force Ones. They're like size 5. Kids 5, which if kids, it's like this big, right? And it's like a $60 pair of Air Force Ones, and like they can barely walk in them, and it's gonna last maybe 2 months. And it's I'm the next one, and it's like it looks great for the picture, I guess, but man, it is a racket.
Yeah, I guess it would be more for the parents in that sort of scenario.
Yeah. The kids don't give a damn.
Getting like the Jordan 1s or something when you're like 1 or
Yeah.
something.
Or
That's
even if
just,
like even getting like, a 6, 7 year old kid and they're just like dragging the kids love to drag their toes when they walk. It just, wrecks the shoes. And then they got this like $70 pair of shoes and they just obliterate it. And you're like, oh my gosh. Because when I buy a pair of shoes, it's gonna last me it'll last me over a year when I buy a pair of shoes.
yeah, easily.
Like a kid, it's like you might get 6 months out of it, maybe.
The only thing that really stops shoes from lasting even longer for me would just be the rain. They age the shoe unbelievably if I end up caught outside pouring in some sort of some sort of like muddy area. That's what ends the shoes. But oh man, like I said earlier, a lot of different stuff going on in college football. But I know that you had some shower thoughts, some stuff that's also kind of keeping you up at night. I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. You can kick us off with what you maybe had in mind. What keeps you up at night, Brendan?
It certainly used to be more of a thing years ago, but like you'd go in the shower and you'd read the shampoo bottles on the back, right? The ingredients. You didn't have anything to do because we didn't have Bluetooth speakers or anything like that back then. And I got caught in a situation where I was taking a shower and my Bluetooth speaker was dead. So I was just in the shower, left only unto my thoughts.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I kind of got into a dark place of thinking like, what outside of injuries and quarterback, I was just like, what could go wrong with this 2025 team? I think that this is a team that can compete for a national title again, definitely make the playoffs. But I was just left thinking, what feasibly outside of injuries and then the quarterback could go wrong, or what pratfalls are there with this team? And I had a bunch run through my head as I was, washing my hair. Do you have anything before I give you mine? You can take whatever one you want because I had a couple.
Well, my worry is just opening the season and we think we have our guy, but he's going to take the lumps against Miami. And that's just a poor way to start the year. I think that's what scares me. Then starting 0-1. Okay. Whoever wins the starting job, maybe it's CJ Carr, probably, or Kenny Minchie, 2 picks in that game or something like that, starting off on the wrong foot. I know we just had our turnaround against NIU and, almost ran the table all the way to the promised land, but oh, dang, going into week 2, that just feels like a rough place to be. That keeps me up at night. I think this Miami game is a very interesting one. And, Carson Beck is potentially going to have to, he didn't have the spring, so he's going to be trying to get up to speed as quick as he possibly can. I feel like it's a little different for a first-time starter in that sense, but
especially on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can speak to this. It's going to be raucous, would you say?
I would say so. I think this is going to be, God, I have to take a look at what week 1 looks like. I don't know why I don't know this off the top of my head, what some of those other games look like. I'm sure LSU is going to play a game against somebody, potentially end up losing that one as well. But there's going to be a lot of different matchups in week 1. But I'd say that that's probably the number 1. I don't know if game day, is going to go there.
Yeah, it's the Sunday night game.
Okay.
So we miss the Saturday action, and there's Ohio State and Texas, right? That's the big one.
I think that they're going there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I think that they may have already announced. I didn't want to say it just too much, but I know that that's Corso's last game or last game day, right, to start the year. So I think they're going to Ohio State and Texas. If my memory serves me correct.
And it'd be a Fox game, but it hasn't stopped them before. They've been to Michigan, Ohio State games. So they've been to the big noon kickoffs. Other than that, but I mean, yeah, there's some good games that, I guess Florida State, Alabama is okay. Norvell's got some things to prove. Clemson, LSU.
That was the LSU game. I guess I was thinking of
LSU game.
Good luck.
A couple of quarterbacks that I love to read about in the preseason, looking to make jumps, right? With Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik, and I am not sold on either one.
I know your Cade Klubnik feeling strong here.
Yeah, I don't see it. Ago. Well, I don't see it. But I think that's pretty much all of the heavy hitters, and then Notre Dame, Miami on Sunday night. That's a good Sunday night game. but it beats the pants off the Monday night, which is TCU, North Carolina, which, I mean, other than Bill Belichick and his girlfriend, where's the sizzle?
Yeah, shout out. And will Jordan be on the sidelines? Who knows? That will be.
Will she have a headset?
Will she have a headset? Will she be stealing signs?
Or is she going to be, up in the booth, with the coordinators? What is that going to look like? I don't know.
Calling the quarterback down, needing to have a talk. Definitely could be
getting on the phone.
If that's the biggest storyline. I mean, that's a gigantic story that kind of just like took the whole like college football world by storm in the dead period before everything went down. But that's the biggest storyline,
And how wild is that? Like Bill Belichick, his entire NFL career built a
mystique.
Yeah, just beat this mystique about him of like no questions, did not answer anything to the media, didn't play any media games, everything's buttoned up. His players weren't allowed to talk to the media. Everything was vanilla, corporate, cookie cutter, nothing. And then he gets back into coaching in the college game, and it's like a circus with his girlfriend. It's like, what does 2004 Bill Belichick think of 2025 Bill Belichick's
oh man, what an interesting retrospective almost.
I know.
I couldn't even fathom that, or even like when watching, the latter part of that Patriots dynasty, or I guess the second part of it, would have never even thought at all. But that goes to show you, you need good PR. You need good social media managers. You can't half-ass this stuff, and they were making all the wrong moves. Also, the detriments of selling a book, because I believe he had a book coming out too, and that was part of doing that. It was CBS This Morning, that interview. That's you're trying to sell a book.
That was the one.
You get in there, of course they're going to ask that. That's a mess waiting to happen. Need some help.
But I guess no publicity is bad publicity, isn't that what they say?
That's what Jerry Jones says. I know that for sure.
Jerry Jones says, yeah.
Yeah, depending on where you're at. But I think for Bill Belichick, certainly not the right place to be. But like we were saying, that's the big storyline kind of going into week 1 for North Carolina. So that TCU North Carolina matchup certainly doesn't hold a candle as far as Notre Dame Miami is concerned. No. I would say that's either second or tied for first, along with Ohio State, Texas. I know people are waiting on the Arch Manning Arch Manning debut for Texas, and going against the defending champions is an unbelievable matchup. I kind of forgot about that a little bit, but yeah, that's my biggest concern. I think that's my nightmare scenario, starting off 0-1 and then having second thoughts about who the quarterback is or whatever. I don't think that there's going to be a change mid-season at all. I think the guy who gets the job is going to be able to keep it and isn't going to like lose it or anything like that, barring injury. But I know that is something that scares me about. I think this defense is going to be able to show up, but being in that stage and in that scenario, I think that's an extremely tough task, and that keeps me up.
Yeah, and I mean, and plus two, you never want to go into. There is that early bye week because week 2 is a bye before the Texas A&M game, so they open with Miami on a Sunday, and then the next week they're off, and you never want to go into a bye with an L, especially with another marquee night game coming up. So you go back-to-back nights, so. Yeah, you don't want to start 0-1. For me, I guess the thing I was really keyed in on is we were all very encouraged by Great House's performance in the last 2 games in that playoff run, right? The Penn State game and the Ohio State game. But I mean, we've seen it to that point. That was half the yardage that he had for the season. And so my concern, I guess, would be like we put a lot in that. Oh yeah, Great House will just keep going. He's going to have a phenomenal year, and Malachi Fields is going to come in, and they recruited pretty well. The last cycle was really good. What if the wide receiver room for like the 6th straight year doesn't develop even remotely, and it's just another middling wide receiver room? And that's the one that kind of got me, because it's like Eli Raridon factors in to be an important part of the pass game, but there is health concerns up and down. I mean, Raridon too. There's health concerns with the tight end room, and Jeremiah Love's phenomenal, and Jadarian Price is phenomenal, but they need to have at least a dude at the wide receiver position. And if they still can't get somebody who's a dude, It might not burn you, during the regular season, but at this point, I'm not really looking at things in this 2025 season about like regular season success, because I have no doubts that I don't have any doubts that this team is going to be able to make it through the regular season and make it to the playoffs. I'm looking for a national title. I'm not looking to I'm just excited to be there. I'm looking to get over the hump. And in order to get over the hump, they need to have, maybe not need to, but they have to have competent wide receiver play and consistent wide receiver play, like someone you can rely on. And I don't know, that's the one thing that I kept coming to is like, oh my gosh, what if the wide receiver position again is just unreliable? And like, you go back even to somebody like Braden Lindsey, and you just kept expecting like, well, this is going to be the year for Braden Lindsey. Oh, this is going to be the year for Braden Lindsey. And it just wasn't. And it's, you look up and down they brought in 5 stars before. I mean, like Jordan Johnson, does he have a catch did he get a catch at UCF?
I don't believe so, because there weren't very many people who recorded receptions.
Yeah, that's true. What was the last 1,000-yard receiver for Notre Dame was Chase Claypool in 19?
Goodness gracious. Has it really been that long?
Since
Even with
19?
the tight ends?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, that would make sense.
Because Michael Mayer in 21 had 840 and Kevin Austin had 888. And in 2022, Michael Mayer had 809. And the second leading receiver was Jaden Thomas with 361.
Goodness. It reminds you of those like early Chiefs teams with like Alex Smith, right? Where they weren't throwing any touchdown to
there was a pretty prolific streak before they got, because Tony Gonzalez had 15 touchdowns or whatever, but a wide receiver didn't have one for a hot minute. You look at Greathouse had some 2023, had 5 touchdowns, but he only had 265 yards. And then last year, Greathouse ended up with 592 and led all receivers with 592, but he had a $105 and a $128 in those last 2 games. And that's, just about like 40% of all of his receptions or pass yards were in the final 2 games of the year. It's like, what if he does not take that step forward? And that's the thing that gets me is if they can't find that wide receiver who's able to take that step of consistency. And I think this is a good point too, from Beefeater ND08 in the chat. The QB wide receiver bond is strange. They have to be on the same page and have confidence in each other in real game environment, immediately, while not being able to play preseason games. And that's very true. And finding that timing and consistency and stuff, you have a first-time starter, no really established wide receivers. I'll grant, Greathouse to an extent, but that's still 42 receptions for 492 that's like wide receiver 3 stuff. So that's the one concern that I have. And can you find that consistency? And I do like the fact that Miami's a place where I think you can find some consistency with wide receivers, because how's the secondary looking?
I think there's something to get at there.
So I would like to see, to avoid both of our fears, I would like to see some chemistry between QB1 and wide receiver 1, whoever it is, whether it's Malachi or it's Greathouse or, whoever it might end up being as that wide receiver that steps in. So Pauling, read some nice things about him as well, being a culture guy in the locker room. Will Pauling. So maybe he's is a speed guy. So I'd like to see some development from the wide receivers for the first time.
Yeah, it's extremely tricky. And the way that I would say that this offense definitely starts off that game against Miami is super important. It's like specifically in the run game, just being able to set it up and make it as easy as possible in that first game is super crucial. I feel like that's a very obvious thing to say, but for that to continue and to be able to have that first half go smoothly and not try to, and not fall behind in that game as well, not be too reliant on the pass game is just going to be so crucial for just the development of whoever's starting. They do go hand in hand. I'm very glad that you pulled up that comment because they definitely go hand in hand. Like, for them to start off well. And, with Great House, like I kind of look at it to just having momentum from last season while there is so much time in between, the last game of the last season, the first game of the next season, having that momentum and that confidence, I think is something that you can't really fabricate. And I do think it does carry over to an extent. And so I am cautiously optimistic about that for him. And I understand, the opportunity and the chances will be there for him. So it's just about being able to translate some of that confidence over. And then hopefully that run game can set up some very easy passing opportunities. And then, that first half could be the tone setter for the rest of the year for the passing game. It could really provide this team with some serious confidence that, maybe you would get if there was a preseason in college football.
Yeah. And, if you look back to the Miami game in 2017, right, it was a pass from Wimbush to Claypool down into the red zone that went incomplete. And then after that, the wheels start, like Notre Dame's offense never really got going for the rest of the game. And by the time it finally did, it was 27-0 at half. And then right out the half, it was 34-0, and they couldn't run the ball because they couldn't pass, and they couldn't also run the ball because Josh Adams was hurt. And yeah, that was an egg laying, and that's definitely not something that you want to see, because that Miami team, while 9-0 after the game, it was not a great Miami team. They ended up getting their doors blown off the last two games of the season, and it's something that Notre Dame should have been able last 3 games of the year, right? Because then they get beat by Wisconsin in the Orange Bowl. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of opt-outs and that stuff too, but you should be losing to them.
I didn't know if you had a place that you wanted to go for the rest of the team before we kind of move into what has been going on in college football now. Thought this was a really interesting question. Obviously, he threw in another one too, I just saw. But I think the odds are low, at least for the first half. I don't know exactly what I would expect. It is June, so it's very tough for me to just throw out an exact number. But I wouldn't say any more than 15 passing attempts in that first half, unless Notre Dame falls behind. But I definitely think there's going to be a more conservative approach, and then especially if it's Kenny Menchie, like I definitely think there's going to be some more designed runs in a different way, obviously, than we saw with Riley Leonard, but more maybe
speed option instead of power. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I would say if it was Brian Kelly, because this was always a Brian Kelly staple. Brian Kelly loved to call that early play action bomb. That was one of his favorite things to do, was to call that deep shot early. I don't know if that's going to, Denbrock's here. So, some of that could have been Denbrock as well, but, I would hope that whoever's playing quarterback at the end of the first half doesn't have more than 15 passes. I don't want my quarterback to have more than 25, 30 passes in this Miami game, because I would like it I would like the running game to set the tone, and then to be able to rely on that running game, and force Miami to tackle. That's what I would hope to do.
Exactly. And Miami's defensive front, like they had so many different things from last season that they needed to clean up on their defensive side of the ball. Like there's a lot of optimism going into next season about what that defense can be, but it is the highest of tests to be able to stop the Notre Dame rushing attack. And that defensive line, while there is a lot of, like I said, optimism, is going to have to do that first too. And they're going to be in mid-season form as well. And so, like we're talking a lot about the passing game. Well, in that first part of the game, like if Notre Dame's averaging 5 yards a carry or something, something like that, there's not going to really even be a question presented about what exactly these quarterbacks are going to have to do, because all they're going to have to do is hand the ball off, out of the shotgun or something like that. So they're not going to have to do too much.
And those early season games. Yeah, in the early season games, because they always say that the biggest improvement that you make is the jump from game 1 to game 2. And a lot of that has to do with tackling. And a lot of that has to do with, because they don't tackle as much, and they're not as physical in the early spring or the fall. It takes place in the summer. But the fall camp, they don't tackle like they used to, because they want to keep kids from getting injured. And there's also a lot of, they do a lot of stuff in shells, right, which is just helmets, no shoulder pads and stuff. So they don't have as much tackling. So earlier in the year, you have a harder time with that stuff. So playing Miami week 1 is advantageous for Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is going to want to run it and force Miami to tackle. And your tackling is always going to be worse in that first game. So that definitely plays to an advantage for Notre Dame as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And as far as everything else goes, I think maybe the one other concern that I might have is there's a lot of talented guys on the offensive line. It's just, are they picking the right pieces early on? So is the 5 that starts against Miami going to be the 5 that starts against USC at midseason? Probably not. History would say that it's not. But, you want to make sure you get it at least partially right. And I think you look back to last season against Texas A&M, and the guys that started against Texas A&M are not the guys that started in the playoff. And injuries notwithstanding, I still think the guys that played and ended up getting beat out later on in the year did an amicable job in that game. So I don't know. I think getting the offensive line, you have a lot of good pieces. It's just getting the right ones in there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, there's been a ton of different changes since the last time we talked, and New sport. Yeah, different. Dave, feels like it's a professional sport, I think, officially. I feel like we've known this for a minute, but the college football playoff has changed its seating a little bit. And for the time being, that this is the way that it will remain probably going into this year. Still 12 teams, but the top 4 teams in the final rankings will be seeded 1 through 4 and receive that first round bye, regardless of their conference champion status. I think this was something that a lot of people did like. This was a change that a lot of people wanted based off of the way that the games went last year, and then maybe having a certain feeling about some of those teams benefiting in a sense. This is good for Notre Dame. Great for Notre Dame.
Great for Notre Dame. Yeah. This is great for Notre Dame. This is when Jack originally made the deal, right? You looked at it and you go, well, Notre Dame just signed up for this 12-team playoff in which they will never have a bye. They could be 12-0, like having, defeated everyone on their schedule handily, unequivocally the best team in the nation, and they will still have to host a first-round playoff game rather than get a bye. And you look at it and you're like what are you doing, Jack? And then after this all plays out, and he had to have seen this coming, all of these schools look at it, they go, why is Arizona State and Boise State getting first round byes? This is absurd. This is absurd. What are we doing here with this? First round byes go to conference winners when they're not even the best teams. And the SEC's up in arms, the Big Ten's up in arms, and enough arms are in the air that they make this switch. And Jack looks back and he gets to have host the first ever college football playoff against Indiana on campus. Ratings bonanza and as far as the vibes go, and you get that mystique of having done it. And then they reset it next year, and Notre Dame's right back in there with, if Notre Dame runs the table this year, they're probably going to have a bye. And I mean, that's phenomenal. And who knows with the 16 team, whether or not, we're going to AQs or at larges. But Notre Dame is well positioned in that as well because of this seeding. If Notre Dame's the number 1 team during the season, they'll get the bye that they so rightfully deserve.
Yeah, I think the buys. Well, first, yeah, I'll completely agree. This makes Notre Dame look great. The fact that they were on board with both, not holding up anything for college football. I think Notre Dame has become likable in for 100 different reasons. And one of them, I think, is the way that they're handling the college football seating. Anybody who has objections, maybe not to this specific change, but just in general to what is going on in college football, can't really point their finger, I think, at Notre Dame for what they've been doing. I think they've been a very positive reinforcement to this sport ending up in a place that is better for the players and the coaches and finding a true champion. Now, as far as whether or not they would be able to cash in on this newfound opportunity of being able to get that bye or to get into the top 4 seeds, I question a little bit. They could not do it at 11-1. I think they would need to run the table just because I think when a team plays in that conference championship weekend, I don't think that they would get punished in a sense against teams that maybe didn't. And I know that sounds like a very, old classic, like Notre Dame criticism, but I think that was real. And I think we saw that last year where the teams got punished for not being in the buys and not getting that top 4 seed and, obviously not getting that, automatic qualifier in that sense, but they weren't falling behind. There wasn't too many seeding changes after the college football championship weekend.
No.
Yeah, it was more so just kind of like a little bit of a reshuffling based off of the automatic qualifier. So I think it would be tough for Notre Dame to end up not jumping, but to have a team slide behind them. That's the way that I look at it. But at 12-0, I think they would be pretty much locked almost regardless of what happens. I think the way that I see it next year, it would be the 2 SEC teams, the 2 Big Ten teams, and then if Notre Dame is 12-0, it's just about however that shuffles out. One of those teams.
I don't think that the losers
finish off that resume.
I don't think the losers of the Big Ten or SEC championship they're not punished for not getting a bye because you are winning the game. You are gifted a bye, and losing the game, you're not punished because you're still going to the playoffs and you're likely going to be hosting a playoff game. I think that Notre Dame, the fact that what did they end up? Did they end up 5 in the final ranking?
Yeah, what was Indiana? Or did they end up 6? Was Georgia 5?
Notre Dame was 5. Notre Dame was 5. So it went Oregon, Georgia, Texas,
1.
Penn State, and then Notre Dame at 5. And Notre Dame's at 5 despite losing to NIU.
Yeah. But, and that was just also, we talked about it a little bit with the USC conversation a few weeks ago, where it was just, there was so many different games that occurred in conference play for some of those other teams. So maybe not like Indiana, but for some of these other teams where they did shuffle around because they had some losses. They played a competitive schedule just as Notre Dame did in that sense. So I thought that was, I think that would be something that really benefits Notre Dame if they were to go 11-1 or 12-0 in that sense. So I'm glad that you brought up that point. Plus, it certainly isn't the end of the world to not be able to get that by because all 4 of those teams lost last time.
Yeah, and part of it too is Oregon ended up getting Ohio State, woof, and then Boise and Arizona State, is your 3 and 4 seed as they were the 9th and 12th ranked teams respectively, which is that's something, man. That is something.
I used to always think, before we move on to the House settlement and everything, I used to always think it kind of got like, I was like not like a magician, but when I would look at the 4-team playoff and all the different like possibilities, I feel like I could see it and just be like, okay, I see exactly where this could potentially go and what the committee could potentially weigh in their decision. But with the 12-team playoff, it is so difficult, I feel like, to really be able to project that far out. But it's certainly interesting to have that conversation because while we don't know exactly how these games will play out, you kind of have a little bit of a feeling. So you want to make a projection and a prediction, but it's really tough to see so far out. And even when the games are going on in the middle of the season.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people there was a lot of hand wringing in the SEC spring meetings about Alabama not making the college football playoff and why we have to change sort of the seeding and expanding the playoffs for an Alabama team that lost to not only a 6-6 Vanderbilt, but also lost to a 6-6 Oklahoma in, definitive fashion. It's not, when it happens twice, it's not a fluke. And Alabama had 3 losses. So it's like, you can't stump for a 3-loss team that lost to a pair of 6-6. It's not like Alabama, beat Georgia, but then also lost some tough games to other ranked teams. No, they beat Georgia and then just did a spud and train spotting to the sheets, just completely filled the sheets with fecal matter in those games. And like, how can you then like stump for your team when they crap the bed like that? And then you're trying to be like, make me feel serious about a team that, like, yes, you beat Georgia, a game you almost choked away. And then you lose to, Vanderbilt the next week. You lose to Tennessee. You lose to Oklahoma. And, I don't know.
Yeah, the Alabama situation is, I feel like college football, it moves at 100 miles per hour, and there's so many different teams. I honestly just think we have such selective memory with that sort of stuff. I mean, let's not forget the feeling of Vanderbilt actually beating Alabama. You know what I mean? Like that was, that was a gigantic upset.
It's
like,
the biggest win in Vanderbilt school history. Yeah.
And at the same breath, NIU beating Notre Dame. But, if Alabama just took care of Oklahoma, they probably would have been in. And it just is what it is. You have to take care of those games that you have to win. And by that point in the season, they were on a trajectory to make it into the college football playoff. They had just finished off and, taking care of business. They just simply weren't able to do it. I mean, that was simple as that. That was part of the reason why.
You can't lose to Oklahoma 24-3 in the second to last game of the season. You just can't do it.
Exactly. And then it takes away the argument that you're peaking at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly true, because if you catch those before, and maybe you can waylay the Mizzou win and the LSU win, it's like we've turned a leaf over since the Tennessee loss, and it's like, nope, all of it straight into the trash. You lost to a bad Oklahoma team 24-3, and then this is an Alabama team where they didn't have any opt-outs, and they went and they played against an objectively awful, god awful Michigan team. They win 8-4, 5-4 in the conference, and you lose 19-13. Like, Milroe's playing in the game. It's not like they didn't even have Milroe. They had Milroe in that game, and they lost 19-13. Like, get out of here.
And both sides were missing so many players. Like as much as like Alabama was missing a ton of their guys, so was Michigan too. You know what I mean? So it just goes out to, all right, just see what you got. And it was clearly like Michigan's twos or whatever were able to come out on top. But I mean, it is what it is. That's just the way that the cookie crumbles. Every single year, you're going to have that conversation about an SEC team, about the best 12 teams. And if you can't finish the year strong, it's going to be tough Olympic level mental gymnastics.
That's what makes the sport fun too, is that I think that as you continue to expand, then you just are essentially sliding the argument down to less and less deserving teams. So we're talking about a 9-3 Alabama team that lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, not getting into the college football playoff. And then when you expand to 16, that team's in there. So then what's the next team that we have to make arguments and complain about? It's the same thing with, like, you're looking at the March Madness, and you're looking at the field of 68. You're like, they're talking about teams that are snubbed from the field of 68. It's like, you weren't snubbed from the field of 68. There were 68 teams that made it. And if you couldn't put together a 500 season in your conference, why are you wasting everyone's time complaining about not making it to the dance? You obviously didn't do enough during the season. It's not like they're holding out, deserving teams. We're talking about, like, teams that are 500 in conference with no quad 2 wins, and they're like, oh, they went 5-3 in quad 3, and it's like, why are we doing this? And then next year it'll be like, why didn't 10-3 Iowa or whatever make the college football playoff? And it's like, all right, or 10-3 Iowa State. And it's like, all right, are we doing this for all of them? Like, who's the 16th seed? Clemson was the 16, and they made it because they won the conference. But I mean, like Miami, like they faded at the end of the year. Did they deserve to be in the college football? They had ample opportunities, and the refs gave them a lot of opportunities as well. There were some dubious endings to certain games, but Miami had everything there. They had everything there, and all they needed to do was beat Syracuse, and they probably would have went to the college football playoff, right? All they needed to do was beat Kyle McCord in Syracuse.
Yeah. Let's move into the House settlement. A little bit of like a complicated thing. I think things are still getting fleshed out. I mean, a ton of litigation is probably going to proceed after what is going on. But we have a new schedule here. I had it up just a second ago of like what exactly are the big dates for college football. I'll get that up in a second, but 20.5 million per school to have an annual cap roughly. I'd imagine that would go up as the next decade continues on. They're also going to be paying, I believe, $2.7 billion to the players that played. Back pay. And from 2016 to September 1st, 2024. So some of the people that didn't get the full NIL era still get some money and all that sort of stuff. I think it'd be a fun conversation to have next week about which Notre Dame players deserve the most back pay, because this is something that's decided by the NCAA, and then they pick up 1.2 billion of that bill, and then the schools are left with the rest. I mean, I don't know how they divvy up that 1.2 billion either. That's another question I have just off the top of my head about which schools they end up helping out. I guess an even amount across the way through, or is there an equitable amount that they come to? I have no idea, but the NCAA will be deciding who gets paid.
Like, how much money does Johnny Manziel deserve from Texas A&M, right? Like,
yeah, I wish he would have qualified for that, right? Like, yeah. Goodness, he deserves every penny, man.
And like Manti Te'o, I remember they were selling. I went to the Wake Forest senior day game, and they're selling number 5 shirt jerseys with Lay's on them in the bookstore. I mean, no name on the back, but they're selling number 5 jerseys with Lay's, etched into the shirt itself. And it's like, you didn't see any of that. Like Josh Adams, 33 trucking, right? You didn't see any of that.
I'm trying to think of some of those, some of the legends. I mean, Jameis Winston, even, right? Like,
I mean, at least give him a few bucks so he can buy those crab legs legit. Right?
Yeah, come on, man. Support the student athlete. Lamar Jackson too, right? How much money? And Baker Mayfield. I mean, these are like icons, right?
Yeah.
That I'd imagine. What was Baker?
And Lamar
17.
Yeah, right? Because Baker was the one that set the whole thing for Oklahoma. Their Heisman run. I mean, Carter's whatever.
Oh, yeah, all of those guys.
All those guys. Hurts. He set the table for it. He set the table for those Oklahoma quarterbacks. And Texas A&M hype is unearned, but based in probably sold by the Johnny Manziel Heisman Alabama win season. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then we get Kenny Trill the next year, right? I don't know how. I'm curious as how everything's going to play out in Title IX. That's going to be a sticky nonsense. I can already see the lawsuits coming up for Title IX. Like, how do you ensure that the payments are equitable between male and female sports? And I'm glad that it's happening. One big part is because Notre Dame obviously can afford it. There's a lot of athletic departments that I'm not sure how they're going to afford this, especially with the back pay. Like, how does a MAC school keep up in this arms race? I don't know, especially because those numbers are only going up. So when you have Big Ten or SEC money, and Notre Dame with their new NBC contract, as well as the stipend they get from their ACC agreement for other sports, they get a pretty nice chunk of change, more so than any ACC or Big 12 member school gets. So I don't know how they keep up with the Joneses on it, but they deserve to be paid. I mean, they're making the university all of this money. You should be paid for services rendered.
Yeah. That's another good point. I know that they were looking at it for a couple of different ways that they were going to decide on how they were going to pay, or who exactly was going to get how much money. And yeah, those other schools definitely might struggle in that sense. But this changes everything now, and I'm interested in how it does affect some of the other sports as well as Title IX. I know I did recently just see. I thought a softball player for Oklahoma had signed a $1.2 million NIL deal. Awesome. So like, there is money in some of these other sports, but it's certainly nowhere near as vast or as common as some of these.
Who's what's the name of the LSU gymnast? Paul Skeen's girlfriend.
Livy Dunn.
She's the highest paid of all NIL athletes, right? Doesn't she make the most money from all NIL athletes? Mm-hmm. And yeah,
I can't even begin to even comprehend exactly what it would do to some of these other sports. I know that they're going to try to figure it out as much as possible. I know they had also, with the roster cuts, the designated players for those, so they can come back or whatever, and be under a designated player as like the people who left or got cut in a sense, and not be accounted for on the full roster until like it is time to figure that out or whatever. I think they are all able to come back.
A new form of gray shirting.
Yeah, in a sense.
That makes sense because, for the SEC loves to pocket, makes sense for roster management, but they love to pocket players through gray shirting, send them to JUCO or cut guys because of injuries and stuff like that. It helped them with their roster management. Hugh Freeze was a pretty big proponent of it. I don't know if he was proponent, but he was a user of, because Ole Miss at that time would sign these like 35 player recruiting classes, and you're like, what are you doing? It's just like, well, they're just gray shirting and they're using creative roster management, kicking it down the road. Who's the Eagles guy? Rothman, right? What's his name? Eagles GM. Harry Roseman. He's the guy who's real good at kicking that can down the road, because you look at the Eagles and they are consistently spenders. And you're like, how are they doing this? But they're just like restructuring and kicking things down the road because they know salary cap only goes up. And
Hurts' contract certainly helps with their ability to be flexible too.
Oh yeah. But yeah, you get your QB to restructure and front loading contracts and then back loading contracts depending on what works best for your cap situation. That's going to be a big thing for a lot of these college programs. Are all hiring GMs in large part as to make the transfer portal, but they're also going to have to hire contract guys. And it's a good thing Notre Dame's got the Mendoza Business School, so they have that right in line.
Definitely. I have the settlement dates, the notable ones up. And then there was also a question. I think I'm understanding what is being asked. High school players are outside of the scope of the new rules, ? So the new frontier of excess is going to be prepaying high school players not old enough to legally sign a contract. Good question. If they had agreed to any NIL deals or like had committed before this ruling went into effect, that was what we were dealing with already. That would be a yes. But now, no. I believe now everything NIL wise for a commit also has to go through clearinghouse or go through one of those other deals. There was a thought that when this ruling came down on June 6th, because it was June 7th was that cutoff, right? If you had I believe that was the day that you had to commit by, pretty much right after this ruling came out. There was a thought that a lot of guys were going to commit, get a bag really quick before it had to go through. But I don't really believe that happened in very many places. I think it was just too soon and just too big of a risk for players. And also schools probably didn't want to do that either.
Boosters didn't want to have to do the money dump, right?
Exactly.
Because right now what the clearinghouse will ensure is that these contracts are going to be based off of fair market value, that the invisible hand, which we hoped would step in, it's going to be, if it's going through a clearinghouse, there's going to be market value for guys. So Bryce Underwood can't get paid, 8 figures having never taken a snap.
Yeah. And I think as much as we were rooting for these players to get theirs, there was, a few different instances where they were kind of holding some of these programs hostage. I believe Kirby Smart said something the other day where he was like, I'm paying $20K a month to keep these guys committed. That's a rough place to be. That's, that means that somebody's willing to pay $19,000 in a sense. That's how I look at it. But this stuff is going to have to get cleared. And if you do it through that, they have to get it through specific NIL stuff that's more classic NIL rather than under the table money, which was just being presented over the table.
Because my wife, she was asking me today. She goes, she saw on Facebook, I guess, the thing that started traversing, I guess, yesterday on the Facebook machine, that Georgia offered Jeremiah Love $4.5 million in an NIL offer. And I know for a fact that that's not the case. He has been offered from other schools before, not this season, prior to this season. So, going into 2024, he got some offers from other schools for NIL, and Notre Dame matched or whatever, or he turned him down. But Georgia did not offer Jeremiah Love $4.5 million, but that's the kind of fair market value where you go, that's absurd. But then when you think about it, I go, Is Jeremiah Love worth Jeremiah Love is actually worth $4.5 million for a season, right? Because if you drop Jeremiah Love on any roster looking to compete for a national title next year, and that's enormous. He's probably the best college football running back going into 2025. And I think
the best, Brendan.
Yeah.
Let's go.
He's the best running back in college football. He should be an NCAA, NCAA 2026 99 player. He should be a 99. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got elusiveness. He hurdles people. He can catch the football. He should be a 99, and he would be worth every dime of $4.5 million. So that would be fair market. Now, an untested guy, I don't think so. Or a high school kid, I don't think that's fair market. I think hopefully that's what it helps fix, because I would like to see guys that have been proven to ensure that there is money for them to get their bags as they have earned their bags. Mm-hmm. I don't like the prospect of paying prospects. Which I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame has proven that they've been competitive in the NIL space for recruits. I don't think in the last 2 cycles they've lost out on anyone explicitly because of a bag. Explicitly, I mean, I guess you could maybe Keon Keeley, maybe.
It would probably just go around how exactly maybe that recruit is going about his own recruitment.
Yeah, and I think it also refocuses the recruit, because then it's not. We're not bag chasing. The bag's there, so it's not creating bidding wars, which I like. I don't like to create bidding wars and people overpaying based off of need or location. And frankly, this helps Notre Dame, because Notre Dame's never going to be the school that needs to overpay for a guy, because it's Notre Dame, for God's sake. But yeah, I think this helps Notre Dame. I think maybe, but.
Key dates here, and then maybe we move to recruiting. I'll list these out, and then maybe if there's something that catches your eye, just let me know. June 6th, obviously, big settlement approved. New rules into effect. Many questions follow. Many people, including us, have plenty of questions. But June 11th, the NIL Go portal launches. I'm guessing that's just a new
portal page.
New portal, maybe under these specific rules. That's June 11th here, coming up in 2 days. June 15th, opt-in deadline for non-defendant schools to fully commit to revenue sharing. I think that's just going to be everybody. I don't think there's going to be a specific school that just says
Well,
really?
Supposedly there was a scuttle with Tennessee, state legislators with Tennessee. Wasn't that a thing? I believe Tennessee would have been the one, and I think that they might have come into line. But I think Tennessee, there was some discussion about whether or not they were going to do this.
Sure, they were going to secede from college football.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first time someone from the South seceded. I mean,
I didn't see this news about Tennessee. I mean, it's a tough game to play. I mean, posturing, certainly. I mean, there's going to be a ton of different follow-ups here. I don't know exactly what they were saying. I'd imagine they'd be all for what, this stuff, this format. You'd think that this kind of
the state of Tennessee passed a local state legislature. Their state legislator passed a law to prohibit the House settlement from impacting how they conduct NIL. Okay. So technically, the state of Tennessee, their legislation passed a law to sort of combat this ahead of time, which it's a bold move, Cotton. So we will see if it pays off.
And they answer to the SEC, man.
Yeah,
maybe if they're all in, they're going to get in line quick.
They will. Yeah. I'm sorry, you just can't be in the SEC anymore. And it's like,
wait, I wasn't serious.
Wait.
I was just joking.
We're just joking. We like that $60 million a year payday from the conference.
July 1st, 2025, first date for direct institutional revenue sharing payments to student athletes. So the salary cap starting kind of officially, new league year, essentially, July 1st. July 6th, 2025, opt-in schools must designate student athletes permitted by the settlement to remain above roster limits.
And that's where the 105 cuts come.
Yes. And I think that it's what gives them the time to designate some of the players, like in a sense, right, where they are able to go above it as well.
Yeah, to kind of keep some guys in, because you have to honor the existing letters of intent, right? The original agreement. If a kid signed for a 4-year contract, you can't kick him to the curb, I wouldn't think.
Here, let me read this other one because I'm trying to comprehend it completely. Because the way that I had it was you designate student athletes. That would make sense that would be the people on your roster. But I thought you designated some other players in a way that you could keep them above on your roster and above the limit for like this year, or like as like almost like a practice squad kind of thing. I mean, I was kind of confused. The start of the 2025-26 academic year, sometime in August, I'd imagine, with the exception of designated student athletes, fall sports must be at or below roster limits by their first day of competition. So with the exception of designated student athletes. So you can.
So I think what this means,
student athletes, and then you have designated student athletes. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way I'm trying to comprehend it. But there's 2 groups of these people that can be on this roster.
Right. So I think what that one relates to is let's say you have a guy you offered in 2023 for 4-year scholarship, and they're not going to be designated as part of your 105, but you're still going to honor their scholarship to be able to attend school. So you're not kicking these kids out of school or kicking them off scholarship, because that wouldn't be fair. But let's say, you got a Davis Sherwood style guy that's a walk-on, and he's more than earned his spot on this team. Or, you have a Chris Fox, or, whoever you want to, former walk-on you want to look at, who might be more deserving of that 105 spot, which is certainly possible.
Mm-hmm.
More than possible, is likely. But you don't want to pull a kid's scholarship and be like, well, you're not part of the 105. We're pulling the rug. You're not on scholarship anymore. Good luck. I think that's what it does. I think.
Okay. That makes sense. And I know a huge part of this, I thought the holdup was this, was making sure that the roster limits were kind of okay. I thought that was one of the big holdups, where it was like, okay, well, we need to make sure that we protect some of these athletes who are going to get you could get screwed over, right? If you hadn't, thought about this ahead of time.
And you have a certain amount of money, right? You have the 20+ mil to allocate out to these athletes. Maybe you don't want to carry 105, so that piece of the cut's bigger, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So nothing. I don't think that there's any floor. You can carry as many, few as you want, and then that pie gets larger to divvy up. So that could certainly be something as well. I also saw, sort of tangential to the discussion of the House settlement, I saw that the payments made from EA Sports this season is going to be in part based off of how often your school is played in the actual game.
Yes.
Did you see that? That is fun.
I did see that. That is extremely fun. I think that is like the biggest benefit to some of the smaller schools, because you got people, restarting those schools and rebuilding them in the dynasty mode. I'd imagine that is like a direct benefit from them. I don't know if there's a specific game mode that they are looking at when it comes to that, but I know a huge portion of people who play, because Road to Glory wasn't like as extensive, and it's tough to like to measure like which school for Road to Glory, but I know Dynasty's got to be one of those things. I'd imagine they have data on that, but if it's not Dynasty, online play. Because Dynasty can be online, so it's like
all of it. You can't play it. You can't play that game unless you're connected to the internet. It won't let you. So everything's getting uploaded.
Oh, that's true too. And you have a trophy case now too, so there's more of like that database where it's keeping track of exactly what you're doing over time. So they definitely will be able to have, what teams you're playing as, because like nobody's rebuilding Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a a tough point of emphasis for Notre Dame's perspective, but it's great for Kent State. I know that there's a movement for Kent State rebuilding them, and then some of those teams that just entered the FBS too, right? I believe there's
some new ones this year.
I thought that there was some new teams on College Football 26. They may not be new FBS teams. I'm forgetting them off the top of my head. I want to say like one in Delaware, but don't know off the top of my head, but I know that those teams get a major benefit, and how much money that ends up being, who knows? How much can EA add, or NIL or whoever's shelling out the money, how much can they deal out? This is an unbelievable amount of money in college football, so no doubt will it be a good amount of change. But
yeah, I can't remember the name. There's a band that I enjoyed. And I don't know, 10 years ago, they created like a computer application to constantly recycle plays on Pandora with dummy account users. And they ended up making $50,000 in $50,000 out of Pandora plays by late at night, having it constantly recycle and play their songs. So I would imagine a school could, some ingenuitive college students could definitely do that for their school and cheat those numbers to get them pushed up.
Yeah, do simulations count? Just having that farm all day?
I don't know. That's a good question. Is it only hold? I imagine at this point they've seen all of the different ways that you can cheat streaming platforms through, But
there's going to be some more information on that coming as the game ends up getting rolled out. People are going to want to know exactly how they can make their team some money, and that's going to be a major thing that helps out the game. It doesn't need any help, but I believe it was already what was last year? It was on some sort of historic run, but I forget the release exactly for it. Was something ridiculous, like the most played game in the first month since maybe GTA 5, but I don't even know if that might be too high, because I know there was a ton of games that came out in between GTA 5 and College Football 25, but
all the games.
Yeah, all the games.
Yeah,
but it was they went on a crazy run, I know, or maybe it was pre-sales or something. Was so ridiculous. It was probably pre-sales, but All right, let's. Do you have any final things for the house settlement stuff?
I do.
Okay.
I do have one final thing, because I do find it interesting. So over the weekend, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, and Pete Bavacqua, the new athletic director for Notre Dame, ended up playing a round of golf in New Jersey with President Donald Trump. Which I think that, putting aside the nonsense of the politics and where you slot in it, the president of the United States is playing a round of golf, which is basically just like a walking business meeting. And the two people who are invited to talk about this House settlement, on the heels of the House settlement, are the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, who's likely the most powerful man in the sport. And then there's Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director for Notre Dame. It's not Tony Petitti. It's Pete Bavacqua, who is playing golf with the president of the United States and, Greg Sankey. And I think that is, it cannot be understated how massive that is for Notre Dame's position in this landscape. That it's a commissioner of a conference, and then the athletic director of Notre Dame going to meet the president after this, House settlement. I think that's an enormous thing. And if you put the politics aside and stuff and just look at it objectively and say, all right, the president is meeting with two people, and one of them is just the athletic director of a program. That's huge for Notre Dame.
Yeah, that is gigantic. I remember you telling me a little bit about it before we got on, and because I hadn't seen it, I missed it, but. If there's two people that you want to intersect, and you're an athletic director for a program, as you have said, that you would potentially want to show your strength by golfing with, it would probably be the president of the United States and the SEC commissioner. I would say that's just about as good as it could possibly get. So it's certainly impressive stuff, and with the amount of power too that the SEC and the Big Ten have in just this kind of new landscape of college football, and to show, hey, Notre Dame's right there, I would say it's been a pretty good week for them.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty good, especially where there seems to be that schism forming between the two conferences and what they want to have for automatic qualifiers. The Big Ten seems to be more locked into having a 4-4-2-2-1 model,
Mhm.
and then the SEC looking for the 5-11 model. Where there's 11 at large with the 5 conference auto qualifiers, and the Big Ten's like, well, we want our 4, and the SEC is like, yeah, but we can get 5. We're never gonna have less than 4. Why? Like the SEC is taking the non-cowards route, which the Big Ten seemingly is taking this cowards route, where they will take their guaranteed 4 rather than have the possibility of getting 5. So, yeah, I do find that interesting, and it can't not be one of the things. Part of it that, there seems to be that disagreement between the SEC and Big Ten, that it seemed like they were forming the super conference, alliance, and there seems to be a schism here. And if Notre Dame is stepping in, that's phenomenal.
Notre Dame to the SEC confirmed.
Yeah. Well, when Tennessee gets dropped because their state legislator won't let them do NIL.
After this, I have to look at that. I have to see exactly what they passed, because you just knew there was going to be something crazy, but I hadn't seen it. That's so ridiculous. But we'll end today with a little bit of recruiting update. Obviously, official visit season is underway. You're trying to lock up all these 2026 guys because you're always looking ahead. College football, 100 miles an hour. It's my new favorite saying, I think. Going crazy. A lot of different stuff going on. And then obviously you were talking a little bit about the different recruiting stuff that Notre Dame had. I don't know exactly where you want to head with this. I believe Noah Grubbs was the quarterback, the 4-star, was the last recruit that Notre Dame got on June 1st. I don't know if we've had any new ones as of late, obviously in top 3.
And I'm not even sure if he's factoring into their long-term plans either.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to stop. I don't think. I think that I don't know. But who's the kid from Louisiana? Malachi Ziegler is a kid from that they might want to reach out to, and then there's a kid from Georgia that they're also interested in. They still haven't made. I haven't looked to see if they haven't made any real headway in 2027. This was a big weekend for them to get those offers out to 2027 kids for the quarterback position. And there's some consternation about some people like, wow, where's quarterback recruiting going for 2027? And it's just like, I'm not too worried about 2027 to this point at the quarterback position. I'm not too worried even about 2026, because we do have a little bit of leeway in that whoever's starting for Notre Dame this fall is going to be potentially a 2-year starter, which is a position Notre Dame hasn't been in since Ian Book. So it's nice to have that. And then you can kind of, groom the next guy, or you could if you wanted to hit the transfer portal to let a guy season like we did with Carr. So I don't hate that. I don't hate waiting for the right guy and supplementing with a transfer bridge quarterback till they're ready to go. It worked out, I would say, spectacularly for Notre Dame getting Riley Leonard. Hartman was kind of a bust, but Leonard, and then Carr's ready to go now. So I'd like to see some wide receiver. That's the only other thing specifically for this 26 class. They just got the 2 guys signed, in Bubba Frazier and Dylan Faison. And then the one guy that, everybody's holding their breath for is the 5-star from Chicago, Quentin Burrell. And he's a Catholic school kid that, from Illinois, you would hope a kid from Mount Carmel comes to Notre Dame to play football, especially as a 5-star wide receiver. But I guess we'll see. They've done really well in the defensive line. They've done really, I don't have any concerns ever about, the offensive line either. So, I'd like to see some skill position stuff get shorn up. You can't have, how do you have a lot of concerns about the number 2 ranked recruiting class to this point? And it's not even like the number 2 ranked class because they have like 27 kids signed. what do they have? 16? They have 16 kids committed. Where are they at? 12. No. It's 20.
I see. Are you talking about the amount of commits that they have?
26. Yeah. They have 16. Yeah, 16 kids.
16. Yeah,
and they have the number 2 overall class, and they got 16 kids committed. I mean, you have room
are you
to
looking, add. Which side are you looking on?
I always use 247 composite.
Yeah. I'm an On3 guy. I like On3. But yeah, they have them at 4th. But yeah, it's the class is looking really good. I'm glad you mentioned wide receiver. I know there's a DB, Joey O'Brien, who's listed as an athlete that they're trying to make a last minute pitch for. I believe he's currently a top 15 athlete, 4-star. I know that's somebody that they're looking at. They're in a ton of different stuff. You can't be too concerned with the way that things are going.
And put it in perspective
for a little bit of a sidebar. This is a Christmas tree, a mini Christmas tree behind me. So
I do like this. I do. Yeah. I do like the Christmas tree, and I had that exact same clock for like a number of years in my apartment. When I've had that one. Notre Dame has 16 commits in the number 2 class. USC is the number 1 class, and they have 28 commits.
Yeah, USC being all that high is definitely going to drop. That's going to adjust.
Yeah. As far as like average, average rating goes, Notre Dame is right in line with the best in the nation for their number of commits. So I like that.
Whew. All right. Well, final words. Any exercises I need to do for this pinched nerve that I got, man? I mean, I don't know if you've got any experience in that. I'm dying out here, man.
Heat, icy hot. And just keep icy hot on it, and because I put a lot of children on my shoulders. The kids love to ride dad's shoulders. From my almost 11-year-old daughter, my 8-year-old son, and then my 4-year-old daughter. It's just I'm a jungle gym. And to this point, to B Veter's point, Bandit is the funniest. The most relatable episode of Bluey that there is for me is Takeaway. It's maybe my favorite. Sleepy Time is obviously, the gold standard for Bluey, but Takeaway is the one that resonates for me because it shows the absolute never-ending nature of being a father with children and taking them anywhere. Robot Dad, also very good. There's the malfunctions, right?
These some of these shows are a little bit, like beyond
significantly
my time. But I will say, from some of the Bluey that I have tapped into, it's helped a couple of buddies of mine who have consumed too much of the lettuce from the devil, and it's a nice calming thing. I don't know if it has the same effect on children, but it has calmed some individuals down. So definitely shout out Bluey for the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, there's no going wrong with Bluey. It's just phenomenal television of the highest order.
Look at that, Bluey made it into today.
Oh,
that's when you know. That's when you know we've been away for too long, for 3 weeks. We've this is a good inclusion. I like it. I like it.
Yes, as far as anything else, I mean, dropping a Bluey ref. It's adult crack too, because like when season 1 came out, my wife and I, it was basically around COVID time, like when it was dropping, and I remember we watched the premiere and then went through the whole thing, and then when the second part of season 1 dropped off, like Christiane and I the kids would be asleep at bed, and like Disney Junior would be on TV. And like Bluey would be on there, and we'd be sitting downstairs, and we just let Bluey ride. Like
let it ride,
we just let it ride. It was like, you know what? I'll watch Sleepover. I'll watch Muffin be an absolute goblin. I'll watch that, and it'll make me laugh. So yeah, I definitely love Bluey. It's also for the adults who are watching it with them, which I think is what sets it apart from something like a brain rot like Cocomelon or frickin' Baby Finn or any of those god awful ones. Yeah, I tried a Pavlova, and it was phenomenal. And that's also when I speak French, because I speak French to my kids. I also speak exclusively in Jacques Cousteau, basically like in the episode of what was the Flight of the Concorde song where they basically sang in tropish French. That's how I do it too. Is you just go oh oui oui, and you make all the funny French sounds, croissant, baguette, the whole time, and you just pretend you're French that way. And I appreciated seeing Bandit, and I did the not a lot of times watching that show. You do the Leonardo DiCaprio from pointing at the TV like hey, that's me.
I love a good Once Upon a Time in Hollywood reference too. This might be a little bit of a tangent, but I was thinking about some of the shows that you recommended for me, and I don't remember if you talked about The Last of Us, but I don't remember if we had mentioned that a little bit. But
we did not.
I heard season 2 was. I heard it wasn't up to snuff.
So
I don't know if that's true. I got to tap back in, but I know I'm late.
No, don't. I would have warned you as a player of the games. Last of Us season 1 or Last of Us, the first game and the first season, absolute masterpieces.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were choices made narratively, and then the TV show, the big narrative choice in the game of Last of Us 2 carries on to the TV show. But then I liked Bella Ramsey in Game of Thrones, and I thought she did a pretty good job in Last of Us season 1. But man, cannot carry a television show, and the writing did no favors. It is last season of Game of Thrones level. Not good. Yeah.
I think I mentioned this to you before. I'm a big watch a television show that I love so much and stop before the last season kind of guy. And I did that for Game of Thrones because I was trying to catch up all the way when they were ending it. And I wasn't able to get back up and caught up. And then everybody was like, stop, don't. Or it was rushed or whatever. The writers left. They were going to do a Star Wars movie. Ended up not even doing that movie. And it is what it is. And then I don't believe the final book has come out yet and all that sort of stuff. But he maybe told them how he was planning on doing it. But I know that ended. So I'm always somebody who can kind of cut it off whenever it's good. But
yeah, you're good. You're good just living with season 1 because it ends succinctly. Like the game was never designed to have the success warranted a sequel. But it's fine for a standalone, and it's phenomenal television. The first season, absolutely. Second season, you can right to the ocean.
Well, I guess that does it for us. Another good Monday in the books. We will be back next Monday, same time, Monday night. This has been the Voice of College Football on Notre Dame. We're gonna see you guys next Monday for sure.